All right, Saw 3.
Saw 3 Teeth.
Yes, another one written by Leigh Whannell, directed by Darren Lynn Bousman.
This one's written by James Wan too.
All right, I think he has story credit on it.
Story by James Wan and Leigh Whannell. Here's what happened. So interesting. So Greg Hoffman is the producer of the first two. It looks like he's credited here, but he died, I believe, right after Saw 2 came out. And Wan and Leigh Whannell were like not going to be involved in this, and I think Bousman was not going to be involved in this either. But he died like literally like 2 weeks after Saw 2 came out. So like, well, let's make this one for him.
All right.
So they got together and they came up with this story. And apparently Leigh Whannell was like, this one's not going to like have a big twist. He's like, it has a twist in it, but you're going to figure it out in the first 15 minutes. He's like, I think most people will. Anyway, so they were more aiming to write an emotional ending, kind of more so. And I think this one was like good. I thought, I think this one's like, it's longer than 2, but it's paced better. Like there's a lot more stuff happening and more intrigue. And I think the ending, for whatever, I did not remember they were married until like it became very obvious. Like it is embarrassing how long it took me to figure out they were married. Like it was over an hour into the film, which is sad.
Yeah, this movie is. I think this movie has increased in my rankings more than any other Saw movie.
It's moved up. Huh?
Yeah, it's moved up. Just because, I mean, maybe it's because I was taking a lot of notes on this one. But I think it's like, it's a really good, I feel like everything in it is just really good for a Saw movie. I think it has fantastic traps. I think pretty much every trap in this one I really like. And I have them noted down here. We'll talk about them. I like the whole idea of this guy going through, trying to get over his, vengeance for his dead son and everything. I think that's kind of, especially at this point in the series, an interesting way to go. And I even like the whole, I guess it doesn't really go as much into the detective stuff in this one. It does a bit, but
it doesn't.
It's more, this time in this one is split more between Jeff, who's the guy going through the challenges, and then Jigsaw himself and that whole stuff.
Amanda and then I can't remember. Lynn. Yeah, Dr. Lynn.
But yeah, I really quite liked this one a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
And I guess there is cop stuff, especially at the beginning. But starting at the beginning, I have this note, which you also might have, that the Saw room in that is not the original, or like it's from Scary Movie 4,
which is one of the greatest parodies I've ever seen.
I remember really liking that. I haven't seen it in years. I remember thinking it was funny.
If you are a fan of the Saw franchise and you have not seen the Scary Movie 4 scene with Shaquille O'Neal and Dr. Phil. In the Saw room, it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. In fact, I will need to watch it later because it is so on point and hilarious.
I do, yeah. It's just funny because they made like an exact replica for that movie. So then the producers of this movie, when they had the beginning with Detective Matthews in it, they're just like, hey, can we just use that?
Yeah,
for that, and they did. So that's kind of funny. I don't know where else we want to go.
So in the beginning, I forget what, because it goes back to the same scenes like several times. Is that when he breaks his foot?
He breaks his foot, but he doesn't escape.
But he doesn't escape.
Yeah,
it just shows him breaking his foot, which smart. Why did the doctor not think of that? Is what I want to know.
I read that as like an answer to that first movie. Like it still doesn't make sense why he didn't do it, but I feel like that was probably a common complaint at the time with that first movie. Like it just doesn't make sense why he wouldn't do that. So now in this movie, you have him do it.
Maybe Dr. Gordon his feet are just too large.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, this is a good opportunity.
Smaller chains,
Yeah.
Smaller shackles. But yeah, no, that's a very unpleasant to watch scene. Just shattering his foot and just the amount of pain that he's in.
I do really like the seeing the dead corpses. I mean, you see it in 2 too, but you see like Adam's corpse and stuff in there.
Yeah.
It's just like creepy and decomposing, and
Zepp's just there too.
Zepp's there too.
Away.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. There's some good dead corpses in here.
The first appearance of Detective Hoffman, but only in a very tiny role.
Very
in
tiny
this
role.
movie. I forgot how little he was in this movie. I was like,
I did remember that he was a bad guy or a jigsaw guy. Like I did remember that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But one of the first shots at the beginning of this movie is this. I called it the chain bomb.
Yeah, I
like
wrote it down as
when,
trap with the guy in chains, in parentheses, pulling out from skin.
Yeah. Here's my deal with it. I get it. Amanda's like rigging the traps a lot of the time. Like this one, the trap was rigged because the door was
welded shut. So even if he had gotten out somehow, he like wouldn't have been able to escape.
But Jigsaw also gave him like, what, I don't know, like 60 seconds or something again, very short to rip out all these chains from him. Like, dude, like if you give him 30 minutes, like, again, come on. And I get Amanda's rigging it, but you're doing the voiceovers, man. You you designed the trap.
Like the trap.
You're doing the voiceover. You're totally like, it's not like she's using an AI bot to twist your numbers here.
That hasn't happened yet in this series.
Not yet. There we go. Jigsaw AI just comes up with traps.
No, and I don't understand how he's supposed to get the mouth one out.
Yeah,
that's like, I mean, I get the idea, but I don't understand how you can reasonably do that. Like pull that out. Like especially with that short amount of time. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I was thinking you could have all those chains, or you could have one chain, but it's tied to his wiener.
Oh, there you go.
Now that
would hurt.
There you go. And then you could make
That's
it
the real
60 seconds.
porn
60
right
seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's a little bit more fair. I don't remember what his deal was. Wasn't it like he? Well,
I didn't write it down.
It was something like perverted, wasn't it? That he was into.
He was. I can't remember. It doesn't say on Wikipedia here.
Blah blah blah.
He was I think he like kept going back to jail or something, right? Like he was the one where he's he spends all his time in jail, feels more comfortable in chains than in freedom.
Yeah,
that's what he says.
Yeah. So how far will you go to get rid of your chains forever or whatever?
Yeah.
I like that. That's poetic.
I think a lot of these saw traps is from now on, no matter how stupid and how much it doesn't make sense from like a Jigsaw standpoint, I think they all have pretty good reasoning for the most part. Like in terms of his demented psyche and like how it relates to their problems and everything.
They're very creative in a very twisted, disgusting way. So yeah, he blows up just everywhere.
Yeah.
But then like you had the one detective lady
who's in the first two as well, Carrie.
She's in the first two.
Yeah.
I didn't
she's
remember
like
that.
has a pretty small part in the first
I
one.
remember
but she's
her in the second one.
Yeah, she's in the second one.
She's in the first one,
I believe so. Yeah, I believe she's
I guess you're right. Yeah. She talks to Danny Glover. Yeah. Weird. She's like kidnapped. They had the live feed in the closet, that's creepy.
That was creepy.
That's like, yeah, she's just like watching the tape. How do they do that, by the way?
I like to reaction to just shoot the closet.
Yeah, I'm like, it's what you would do. Good red herring for the pig person. But yeah, then she's in the Angel of Death trap, which I don't remember. Again, out of that one, why was that the thing?
It just like she unlocked it, but they were still just like lodged in her.
Yeah. So she did it. I remember she had to put their hand in the acid, which.
Owie.
Ow.
Youch.
But why was that? She's okay. But why was that the trap again? Why was it in her ribs? Forgetting.
I can't remember.
But anywho, the trap's in her ribs, and she succeeds. But then like she's like you, and it's clearly
it's
Amanda.
Just obviously Amanda. For some reason,
she
they
just
keep it
rigged it, and then it just.
For some reason, I remembered the reason why she couldn't get out, and it makes more sense that it's rigged. But I thought that she got the key out, and it was like too like melted or whatever,
Yeah,
and it
again,
wouldn't fit in.
how did she wake up at the perfect time? And
Yeah.
they would like you need some sort of device to drop in the key.
I think that's what happens, but we don't see it because like at the start of that scene, the key does drop in.
Okay, I didn't see
but
that.
like it's not very clear how it gets in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining Amanda's just around the corner,
Just-
like waiting, and then she hits the big red button that Jigsaw's labeled very nicely for her. Amanda, don't mess it up, okay? Follow the rules. Like to see Jigsaw as a classroom teacher. There are rules.
There are rules. This one, so Saw 4 is when we'll talk about the really funny transitions. This one does have some good ones though. The one that I have written down here is that scene, just like the scene goes from a wall into the Lynn and the man she's having an affair with sitting on the bed. It's just like this really like stark but like smooth transition. It's funny.
Yeah, and then I mean we have Jeff going through his stages of vengeance and needing to forgive, and Jigsaw's all about forgiveness apparently.
Yes.
And it starts with the girl who was like the witness who did not testify or whatever.
Yeah. Witness to the murder.
And she gets frozen, which apparently the idea was behind that. Like they had someone burned to death and like cut and ripped, and they're like, "Oh, we haven't
what
done
else can we do?"
frozen." Yeah, which I thought was a good thing because he's got to reach in there. Also, though, like, why would you not just move your jacket up?
Yeah,
to cover your cheek
that one's always bothered me with how he doesn't like solve it in just like a better
like
way.
he should be naked or something, and then like
Yeah.
he gets past that, and then there's like a robe to put on or something.
Yeah, that'd be better. But yeah, that just the cold water, on her freezing body just seems so
Oof.
painful.
Yeah.
But I do think it's funny how she's just suddenly an ice cube.
Yeah,
Like just at a certain point, just frozen solid.
yeah,
That's kind of funny. But
it happens very quickly.
yeah.
And then of course you have the pork plant trap, which very disgusting.
Yeah. And
I think that was like the hardest one for them to film, I guess, too.
Really?
They said, they had to make all the pigs too, and
that's true.
imagine being the actress to just get that slop all over
my
them
gosh.
constantly.
Hope he got paid well for that scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that whole trap is disgusting. Every time I've watched this movie, I forget it's there, and then I get to it, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to watch this one.
yeah.
But he has to burn away his kids' possessions because he's holding on.
That was hard. Like I think that was actually like
Twist the knife.
emotionally resonant, where he's like, because he yells at his daughter, and he's got to burn them, and you feel that. And the key drops down. How's the key not like just super hot?
Yeah.
By the way.
Gee.
But then he unlocks it, and the lawyer is saved. Nice. And then the lawyer's all like, Jigsaw, he's like, dude, vengeance isn't going to solve anything. And, your life wasn't the only one that was ruined that day, or whatever he says,
One thing I'll say about that scene that is that while most of the time the music doesn't stand out to me, that scene, like the music is like bumping for some reason. It's like weird.
Remember that.
It's just like this hardcore like industrial rock going on while and it feels like very factory-esque. Like when it's coming out, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like for this
Steampunk.
Yeah, it was very bizarre, but I liked it.
You have just the brain surgery sequence, which is like really like very convincing. Like again,
convincing
the
effects.
traps are practical. This is like all practical. It works very well. Like it definitely seems like you're watching this just black market brain surgery going on.
From what I understand, not that this is really a surprise, but during that scene and like the scene in the hospital, like pretty much all the medical jargon just doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
And what they're doing also, like their procedures, even with the makeshift stuff, also doesn't make the most sense. But it is, the effects in that are great. Great makeup and just general stuff. The prop designer, set designer, whatever he is, he's actually the director of the fifth one.
Yeah.
So I like that they just keep it all kind of within the family.
Keep it in the family.
Keep it in the family.
We see Amanda killing Adam.
Yep.
Just
Got
suffocates
Lee
him.
Winnell back for an little acting cameo.
Yeah. Then we have the rack, which is the twisty one. Apparently, Lee Winnell's original idea was like he was going to get folded into like a cube.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
But they're like, that's gonna be too difficult to do this, so they did this twisting rack thing.
This is one of the hardest to watch traps, I think, for me out of the whole series.
I'm like,
this early on,
dude. Even if this guy does survive at this point, like, he's not coming back from this.
No, oh my gosh.
And then his face just, and there's just the terror on that guy's eyes. No. He quits the key and it shoots the wall. I mean, just really worst case scenario.
Well, that's like that happens. Or wait, there's the other accidental death is in the next one. Never mind.
Okay, yeah.
In the classroom in the next movie.
that one's so out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That I wrote that down. But we'll talk about that in the next conversation. Yeah, worst case scenario with that. Again, disturbing, especially when you just see his twisted head. And then again, I was like, at this point when I finally put it together that they were married.
Oh yeah.
I was like, that is embarrassingly late in the movie.
Well, like what the Saw movies are so good at like just making every piece of dialogue early on so vague that like no real person would talk the way they do. But then when you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh yeah, that's why they said it that way. Like when Lynn is with the one man, she's like, what do you want from me? He's like, a divorce. He's talking about the divorce from Jeff.
Yeah.
Like it's so silly and dumb, but yeah, I don't know. The other thing I want to talk about this, and it's a problem I have with this movie on its own. And I think it's a big enough problem. I wouldn't be surprised if people complained about it because they literally have to later on retroactively change why it's this way. Amanda is so angry for like no reason.
She is upset that Lynn is getting all the attention from Jigsaw.
Yeah.
She's not.
Yeah. And I understand that, but it's to such a weird heightened degree. And I feel like it's just like, that element of her character wasn't built up that well. Personally, like I don't know. For me personally,
like she's clearly emotionally disturbed.
She is, yeah, and you can take that into account. But I don't know. I've always had a problem with just how immediately antagonistic she is to Lynn, even though she's like like Lynn can't do anything, and she's gonna try to help Jigsaw because otherwise she's gonna die. And then Amanda's just like making things even harder for her.
Yeah. So yeah, the twist is that it's all Amanda's test.
Yes. And well, the two twists. I mean, you got the couple thing, but yeah, it's all Amanda's test because she's been rigging the tests, and Jigsaw's been aware of this.
Yeah. Just let it happen.
I guess, yeah, because he doesn't really care.
But I love how Jeff comes in, shoots Amanda, and then he like, oh, I forgive you. But my Tommy gun don't. It's like, that, but it's like the circle saw and just in his neck. I'm like, what? And then as he's getting like bleeding out, he starts to play the tape. I'm like,
yeah,
I put down
so
what I'm
funny.
like, what if Jeff shot him in the head? It's like the Dumb and Dumber.
Funny.
Like, what if he shot him in the face? Yeah, what if he shot me in the face? The risk we were willing to take.
It is. That scene is really funny because it's kind of a ridiculous kill. Jigsaw's smiling the whole time. He's like relishing this. He like figured it was probably going to happen. And then he plays the tape as he's laying there bleeding out.
After he ate the other tape, by the way.
Yeah. Which they do set it up in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure I had noticed it before. Like they do pour the wax on it and everything. But this movie was, even though obviously it sets up more movies, the idea was to be kind of like a trilogy and everything. And that's why Lee Winnell and have really nothing to do with anything after this. And I think it does a good job of like making it feel kind of full circle in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like the bit where it shows like Amanda kind of starting with Jigsaw as his apprentice and then showing them set up the trap from the set from the first movie and everything. I think that's really cool. I think it's funny that Jigsaw dies by a saw at the end. Like, I think that's just great.
It's a full circle.
Yeah, full circle saw. I just think there's a lot of things they do where if they hadn't kept going, like it would have worked really well as an ending. It would have been very satisfying and kind of fun. they have that really cheesy like rapid montage at the end showing all the scenes from the movies prior.
And then it's the ending shot of that is just what Lynn's blown up head.
Yeah,
and it's just
right.
the most tasteless thing, which is hilarious to me.
It's I think like obviously they were gonna keep going because these movies make so much money, but it works so well as just like a third movie in a trilogy, I think. And then I forgot that they're like, oh Jeff, you got to do this other game to get your daughter back. And then knowing what happens later, I'm like, well, okay, that doesn't go much of anywhere.
No, well, yeah, I can't remember how that completely ends, but
I do know how it completely ends, but
yeah, no, there's so many great things to go with this. So here, I've got a few things here, fun facts about Saw 3. So this is per Wikipedia. Almost all transitions from one place to another were not made using digital effects. The transitions were shot on the spot. For example, when the camera moves from Troy's crime scene to Carrie being in the bathtub, Meyer had to run, take off all her clothes, and jump in the tub.
oh my gosh.
Okay, is this not the one where it's the one where they like throw somebody through
That's
the mirror?
4.
That's 4. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting
four.
this.
4 has like 2 or 3 of the best transitions in the whole series, but they're like
that where they go through the mirror is like maybe the best transition I've ever seen.
but it's like it I feel like they kind of built up to that point from the first to that, and then later on they just kind of drop it.
Oh,
they don't do it as much later.
Too bad. A couple other things. This is, you may have heard this before, but the Red Cross has really benefited from the Saw films. So they've made the good things out of this. They have huge blood drives every year when the Saw movie came out. Interestingly, 1,000 Saw 3 posters were made using a small amount of Tobin Bell's blood.
Wow.
And they were sold for $20 each, and the proceeds also went to the Red Cross.
Oh, I wish I got one of those posters. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Hey, Tobin Bell, can you sign my poster in your blood? Yeah, sure.
There was that like huge like internet uproar about those shoes with the blood in them. Where was the uproar for the Saw 3?
X.
Yeah, where was the uproar? The Saw 3 posters with the
Well, I guess the proceed did those proceeds go to the Red Cross?
No, probably not. So this at least good.
And then the last thing I have to mention about this is there's a 2.5 hour extended cut of this movie.
No, so
Unrated anyway.
I watched the unrated cut. I was like, I noticed that at the start. I was like, why is it that way? And like the last hour is just behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
Because I was like, this is not 2.5 hours. I'm pretty sure I've watched the unrated cut before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
It was weird. Yeah. No, I had the same reaction.
which there are like unrated cuts to all these, but we've been doing the theatrical ones.
Okay.
At least I have. You've been doing.
I've been doing unrated, but I don't really think there's much of a difference. But they're all free on Prime, so I'm just. Like,
I don't think
doing
all the
unrated.
unrated are free though. Some of like the first 3 or 4 were, but then like later on it's not.
Okay.
For whatever.
Then I might
weird
just switch
reason.
to regular.
Yeah, that's what I got on Saw 3. Again, like you said, the traps are good in this one. I think the pacing's a lot better. I think all the storylines are pretty interesting. I think this ending is pretty satisfying, and the big mistake is they killed off Jigsaw. Like, why did they do
Yeah.
that? Was so dumb.
But honestly, in some ways, I think it's a
Makes
in
it all the more
retrospect,
hilarious.
yeah, it's a genius move. One of the things I did write about that, like the twist with Amanda and everything, is I wonder if that's like, since maybe this is giving the series too much credit, but like since Saw X is set in between 1 and 2, like are they gonna have to like build that up, like add that in where like she's secretly rigging some of the traps or anything? I don't know.
The other thing I was going to add was apparently, okay, there are a couple more things I have. Sorry. James Wan. I think the reason that Shawnee Smith was cast as Amanda was James Wan had a crush on her.
Oh, really?
Apparently. And like, that's how, like, he's like, hey, like, not like that's why she got it, but he threw her name out there to the casting director and he said, hey, you should contact her about doing this job. And then she got it. And he was like, oh, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen. And then the other thing I was going to mention is they reached out to the actress who played the Dr. Gordon's wife in the first one to do a scene. And she said, no, no, thank you. I don't want to. I just think I thought that were both interesting. And then again, from the first one, I forgot to say the guy's name, but the actor in the barbed wire trap from the first one, his name is Mike Butters. Mike Butters was going to be the original Jigsaw, but turned it down.
One of the things I want to say before we move on, I honestly probably should have mentioned this in the first review, but one of the weird things about this series is, for the most part, and I might point out some exceptions to this, the acting is pretty good. I think, like, especially from like all the unknown actors that like you may have never seen in anything else, they're just all doing a pretty good job, which is like, I feel like for weird low budget like 7 sequel movies, you know, like this, that just usually doesn't happen. But yeah, I think it's pretty solid overall. So
Yeah, solid.
yeah, solid.
All right, that's it for Jigsaw 3. Saw 3 Teeth. We're going to talk about Saw 4 right after this.